The courtyard was dark. 3 men stood in it. Roan stood between them and the door. The medallion lay in the dirt at his feet, a small iron disc. It had come out of his pocket. The man in front had stopped talking. He looked at Roan's face the way a man looks at a road he does not want to take again. "I know who you are," he said. Roan said nothing. What happened that night had been building for weeks. It started the morning he answered an advertisement he almost threw away. The room was 11 paces across and cost more than it was worth. The walls had been white once. The window did not close all the way, which let in cold from one side and noise from the stairs on the other, and neither could be helped. A crack ran from the window frame to the ceiling. It had been there when they moved in. The landlord had called it settling. Pip was asleep on the far side of the room, curled toward the wall with her knees pulled up. She slept the way she did most things, completely, without checking whether anyone was watching. Roan sat at the table. The notice was in his hand. He had read it twice already, then a third time, because reading it a third time felt like doing something. A private estate outside town needed a reliable guard. The pay was listed at the bottom. No name, no details beyond what the work was. He folded it. His hand moved into his pocket before he decided to move it. It closed around something there, something small and heavy, the shape of a coin, but heavier, darker. He moved his fingers around it and put the notice in beside it. The candle on the table was almost gone. He watched it until it wasn't. He did not light another. The floor was cold through his boots. Outside, the street was quiet. He thought about the landlord who had mentioned the rent 3 times this week, each time as though Roan might have somehow missed it the 2 times before. Roan had nodded each time. Nodding cost nothing. He thought about the number at the bottom of the notice. He thought about what Pip had eaten in the last 3 days, and what was left after that, and what came after that if nothing changed. The arithmetic was not hard. It just kept coming out the same. He was still at the table when Pip turned over. She looked at him from across the room. Her eyes were barely open. "Are we moving again?" she said. "Maybe not," he said. She thought about this. She pulled the blanket up to her chin. "The dog downstairs is friendlier than the one at the last place," she said. "Probably not, it is. The one at the last place never looked at me once. This one looked at me on the stairs twice." He did not argue with the math of that. Go back to sleep. She did, or near enough. He watched until her breathing settled. He got up and crossed the room. She had kicked the blanket halfway off without knowing it. He tucked it in under her feet first, then smoothed it up along her back, because that was the order that kept it on longest. He stood there for a while after. Pip's face in the dark looked very young, which she was. He forgot that sometimes. The room was quiet. The stairs were quiet. He went back to the table. He took the notice out and looked at it in the dark. He was not thinking about the work. He was thinking about Pip and about next week and the week after that, and what he would do if the numbers kept coming out the same. Not hope, not yet. Just the arithmetic of it. He put the notice in his pocket. He sat in the cold for a long time. He walked to the estate in the morning, because he had no horse and the road was not long enough to matter. The road ran flat for most of the way. He had time to think, which he used badly. The fields came first, before the fence line did. Green and well kept, which was not what he had expected. He had expected something more like the notice, plain, minimal, giving nothing away. Instead there were fences that stood straight, a stable with its door latched back at the proper angle, rows of something low and leafy that had been planted with intention. Someone had worked this ground for a long time. He stopped at the gate and looked at the place before going in. The yard was empty when he entered. He stood inside the gate and waited. She came from the direction of the stable. He heard her before he saw her. Not because she was loud, but because her footsteps had a particular weight, the kind that does not try to be anything other than what it is. Then she came around the corner of the building, and he saw her. She was tall. He had known from the advertisement that the estate belonged to an orc woman, had told himself it made no difference, which was true. But the knowing and the seeing were different things. She was tall in the way certain trees are tall. Not straining for it, just there, green-skinned, broad in the shoulders, with close-cropped dark hair, and a way of moving that did not hurry and did not need to. She had something in her hand, a sheaf of papers or a ledger, and she was still looking at it when she crossed the yard toward him. She did not look up until she was 10 paces out. She looked at him. Then she said, "What can you do?" It was not a question the way most people asked it. It was the beginning of a list she wanted filled in. "Watch," he said. "Patrol." "Stay awake, handle myself." She waited. "That covers it," he said. She looked at him the way you look at something when you are calculating its weight. He did not look away. He had learned a long time ago that looking away was a kind of answer all on its own. "You have a child?" she said. "Yes." She said nothing for a moment. Somewhere in the stable, a horse shifted its weight and went still again. "Will the child be quiet?" "Mostly," he said. She looked at him once more, not at his face exactly, at something just past it or just behind it. Whatever she was looking for, she either found it or decided she could work without it. She stated the pay. It was what the notice had listed. She said there was a room in the east wing, small, dry. She said the child could come. He would start Monday, which was 2 days from now. He said yes. Neither of them said anything else after that. She turned and went back toward the stable. He stood in the yard for a moment with the gate behind him and the house in front of him, and something in the middle of all that which had just changed, though he could not have said exactly what. What? He let himself out and pulled the gate shut. On the road back he put his hand in his pocket. The weight was there, the small, heavy thing sitting where it always sat. He moved his hand around it and kept walking. The road was the same distance going back as it had been coming out. It felt shorter. They arrived on Monday with 2 bags between them, and Pip insisted on carrying her own. The bag was nearly as big as she was. She carried it with both hands, slightly bent, refusing to set it down. Roan offered. She had it. By the time they reached the gate, she had developed a method and was not walking in a straight line, but was moving forward. "I've got it," she said, to no one in particular. He opened the gate and let her through. First, the room was in the east wing, which meant a separate entrance, and a short hallway, and then a door that opened into somewhere dry and small, with a window at the far end that looked out over the yard and the fence line and the fields beyond that. Pip dropped her bag and went straight to the window. She stood there for a while with her hands on the sill. Outside the yard was clean. The fence stood straight. The field beyond it was green. "It's better than the last place," she said. She meant the room. She also meant the yard. She also meant the field, though she had not seen it up close yet. Roan set down the bags and did not say anything. He had 2 hooks for his coat, a table, a narrow bed with a frame that did not squeak when he sat on it, and a window. He checked the window. It latched. He opened it and closed it twice. To be sure, the estate had its own rhythm, separate from theirs. He could feel it in the first hour. Tools returned to the same places they had come from. The yard kept itself ordered. Vara moved through the grounds the way she had moved through the interview. Deliberate, unhurried, attending to what needed attending to. He stayed out of her way. She moved through the property with the attention of someone who had built what they were looking at. There was a difference between a yard that was kept and a yard that was known, and this was both. That evening, he walked the perimeter. He started at the main gate and moved left along the fence line, keeping one pace out from the posts. He noted where the fence bowed and where it held. He noted the gap between the bottom rail and the ground at the northwest corner, which was wide enough to matter. He noted the sight lines from the road to the house and from the house to the road. He did this without thinking about doing it. On the path near the stable, he nearly crossed her coming the other way. She had something in her arms, a coil of line. She said, without slowing, "Westgate sticks, I noticed," he said. She stopped, just for a half-beat. Then she kept walking. He did not know what she had expected him to say. He had walked past the west gate 3 hours ago and noted the hinge. That was the kind of thing he filed away. That night Pip slept in a real bed. He could hear her breathing from across the room, even and deep, with none of the thinness that came through when the walls were cold. She had not asked if they were staying. She had already decided they were. He sat by the window. The yard outside was quiet. The fence stood dark against the last light. He listened to the sounds the estate made at night, one by one. The stable, the wind moving through the far field, the gate settling on its post. He filed each one away. He was still learning what the quiet here was supposed to sound like. Not comfort, not safety, just a room that did not leak. For now, that was enough. He was up before dawn on the first morning, before the house made any sound, and he walked the perimeter, again the same way he had walked it the evening before. He found the west gate the same way he had found it the evening before. He came back for tools. He fixed the hinge before the sun was fully up, not quickly and not slowly, the right way, which meant taking the gate off its post to clean the thread, resetting it, testing the swing. He left the tools beside the post when he was finished, off to one side where they could be seen and where no one would walk into them. Vara saw them when she came out that morning. She did not say anything. She looked at the gate and then at the tools, and then went on. That was the first day. On the second day, a delivery wagon came to the front gate. The driver was a man Rowan did not know, broad and impatient, and he became louder when Vara came out to receive the order. The kind of loud that was not about any one thing, but about the accumulated weight of small opinions held for a long time. He did not say anything specific. He did not have to. There were men like that in every town. Rowan had found they were usually loudest when no one pushed back. Rowan stepped into the space between them. He did not step close. He did not touch the man or put his hand on anything. He just moved until he was in the driver's eye line between the driver and Vara, and he stood there. The driver went quiet. He handed over the delivery. He left. Vara looked at Rowan after the wagon had gone. Rowan said nothing. Neither did she. They went back to what they had been doing. On the third morning, Pip found a cat in the yard. It was thin and orange and had no interest in being touched, which did not slow Pip down. She crouched in front of it and explained in a serious voice that its name was Bartholomew Carrot Finch III, which was what it was called, and that it lived here now, which was where it lived. The cat regarded her without expression. Pip went to find Vara. Vara was near the stable door, looking at something in the framework above the latch. Pip delivered the news about the cat's name and its address and its general situation. Vara said nothing for a moment. "The cat doesn't belong to anyone," she said. "It does now," Pip said. Vara looked at the cat which was sitting in the middle of the yard in the particular way cats sit when they are deciding whether to stay, she did not correct Pip. Rowan was across the yard when this happened, mending the section of fence near the north corner. He saw Pip talking, and he saw Vara listening, and he saw the cat. He did not come over. He kept working. He noted that Vara had not sent Pip away. That evening, he and Pip ate in the east wing, at the small table by the window, not at Vara's table. That was how it was, and neither of them had said so. After Pip was asleep, he sat for a while and thought about the delivery driver. He thought about the way his feet had moved before his head had caught up with them, the way he had placed himself without deciding to. He had not planned it. He did not know when the planning had become unnecessary. He did not think about this for long. He put it somewhere else and left it there. Not the job he had thought he was doing, not quite, but he did not know yet what the difference was. A week in, he had replaced a rotted fence post at the south corner, cleared a drain that had been backing up behind the stable, and learned most of the sounds the property made between midnight and dawn. The sounds were not important in themselves. What mattered was knowing which of them was supposed to be there. The west gate no longer stuck. One afternoon, he was setting the last of the rotted posts along the east field when Vara came out and stood watching. He could see where this one had gone soft all the way up from the base. He had found 3 like it across the fence line. This was the last one. She stood a little back, not in the way, not offering anything. He did not ask for help, and she did not offer it. He worked, and she watched, and after a while she went back inside. Not comfort, not quite a routine, more like 2 people who had agreed without discussing it to share the same well. He did not know what she made of him. He was not sure she had decided. It was late in the week when the sound woke him. Not an animal sound, something harder with a different quality. He was on his feet before he had decided to get up. He moved to the window in the dark and stood to one side of the frame, not in front of it, and looked out at the north fence line. He was not thinking about doing this. The yard was empty. There was no moon. The shapes were shapes he knew, and the shadows sat where they were supposed to sit. He waited until his eyes had done what they could, and then he went out. He checked from the east end of the fence first, then from the roadside, then from near the stable. He was not looking for anything in particular. He was looking for what was not supposed to be there. Nothing there was out of place. It was a shutter on the north side of the main house. It had blown open in the wind and come to rest against the outer wall with a sound that was enough in the right quality of silence to be something it was not. He checked the shutter twice before he was satisfied. He checked the latch 3 times. Then he went back to bed and lay there for a long time without sleeping. In the morning, Vara was in the yard when he came out. She said, "I heard you in the night." She was not asking what he had been doing. "The north shutter," he said. "It's been loose for 2 seasons," she said. "I know," he said. She looked at him for a moment. Not the way she had looked at him in the interview. Something quieter than that. Then she went back inside. He thought about that for a while. She had heard him move through the yard in the dark, which meant she had been awake, which meant she had not slept well either, or had not slept at all, and had heard him and said nothing until morning. It was the kind of thing you noticed and then did not know what to do with. He went back to work. Pip found him near the stable after breakfast and told him that Bartholomew Carrot Finch III had slept in the east wing last night, which meant they lived there, which meant the cat had made it official. "That's not how it works," Rowan said. "The cat doesn't know that," Pip said. He thought about arguing this and then did not. The morning Pip first followed Vara through the yard, she did not ask permission or announce herself. She simply appeared at Vara's side near the gate, the same way the cat had appeared in the yard the week before, and fell into step beside her. Vara slowed. Not much, a fraction. She did not tell Pip to go back. She asked once where Pip's father was. Pip said he was fixing the fence. Vara said nothing to that. They kept walking. Pip asked about the fields. She asked what was growing in them, and what grew there before. That, and whether you could eat the things that grew there, or whether they were for something else. She asked whether orcs ate the same things humans ate, or whether they had different requirements. She asked about the stable, and whether there was a horse, and whether Vara rode it, and what its name was, if it had one. Vara answered some of the questions, one word, then two. Then a full sentence about the east field, which had particular soil, deep and well drained, the kind that took years to get right. Vara said it was. She did not elaborate. Pip had already moved to the next question. Rowan was 50 meters out along the fence line, setting a new rail section. He could see them from where he was working. The large green figure and the small one moving across the yard together at a pace that was unhurried on both sides. He could not hear what they were saying. At one point, Vara said something and Pip stopped walking, looked down at the ground, then looked back up and said something in return. Vara nodded once. Then they kept moving. He watched for a moment. He had not expected her to slow down. That evening, Pip came in with the kind of energy that meant she had been thinking the whole way back and was ready to not stop talking about it. She told him everything Vara had said about the soil composition of the East Field, which was apparently very specific and involved the word drainage multiple times. She told him about the West Field, which grew something different. She could not remember the name, but it was green. She told him there was a horse. Its name was something, she had not quite caught it, but it was a real name, not a made-up one like Bartholomew's. She also told him that orcs did eat the same things as humans, mostly, but that Vara preferred things pickled. A great many things, possibly everything. Pip had opinions about pickled things. He let her finish. Then he asked one question. Was she kind to you? Pip considered this the way she considered questions that mattered. Seriously, with her eyes looking at something past his shoulder. She wasn't unkind, Pip said. Good, he said. Pip went to find the cat. He sat with that for a while after she left. The orc woman who had said a dozen words to him in 2 weeks had spent 2 hours answering a child's questions about soil drainage. He had not predicted that. He ran his read of her back through what he thought he knew and found the edges did not quite match the same way. Not softening, not trust, but something he had not accounted for when he had taken the job. He did not know yet what to do with that. He put it somewhere, and left it there, and went to check the perimeter before he went to sleep 2 weeks in. Pip had named the cat 4 times. The cat had accumulated 3 working names, and responded to none of them. Rowan had not slept through the night once. He was sleeping better. The men came on a Thursday, 2 of them, and they were loud before they reached the gate. The kind of loud that starts in the street and arrives ahead of the people making it. Rowan heard them from the east wing, where he was checking the latch on a window he had been meaning to replace. He came out. They were leaning on the gate when he got there. Not armed, as far as he could see. Local men, by the look of them, with the specific quality of grievance that comes from having nursed something for a long time without ever quite doing anything about it. One was doing most of the talking. He wanted Vara to come out. He had things to say to her. He had said these things before by his own account, and no one had listened properly, and now he was going to say them again. Rowan walked to the gate. He did not walk fast. When he got there, he opened it, and stood in it, one hand on the post. He did not say anything. His posture had not changed in any way he could have described. He was just standing in a gate, looking at two men. The loud one stopped mid-word. They looked at him. He looked at them. Something moved across the first man's face that had nothing to do with the actual situation, and everything to do with something older than that. The second man took a step back without appearing to know he had done it. "Move on," Rowan said. They did. He closed the gate. He turned back toward the yard. Vara was standing 30 meters away near the stable entrance. She had gone. Still, he could see it from here, the way her weight had shifted and steadied. She had been watching for longer than he had realized. He started walking back toward her. As he moved, something shifted in his breast pocket. He looked down. The medallion was in his hand. He did not remember taking it out. The clasp had probably given, or he had not fastened it properly that morning. He looked at it for a moment. Then he put it away. Vara was still watching. She had not moved toward him or away from him. That evening, she found him near the stable, checking the feed latch on the side door. She said, "What was that?" "Nothing," he said. "It wasn't nothing," she said. He kept working the latch, which had been stiff for a week. "Those men, they come by 2 or 3 times a year," she said, "since I bought the east field." He nodded. He had suspected something like that. "Where did you learn to stand like that?" she said. He did not answer right away. The latch gave under his hand finally, and he tested it twice to see if it would hold. "A long time ago," he said. "How long?" "Long enough that I thought I'd forgotten." She did not ask anything else. He did not explain anything else. She went back toward the house. He watched her go and stood there for a while after she had gone inside, with nothing to listen to but the stable settling in the dark and the distant sound of Pip somewhere in the east wing, probably explaining something to the cat. Then he went back to work. 3 weeks in. The first real cold of the season came on a Tuesday, the kind that settled into the walls before noon, and stayed. Pip had been spending time in the main house in the evenings. This had happened gradually without anyone deciding it. First, she had come to return something she had borrowed without asking. Then she had stayed to ask a question. Then the question had been answered, and she had not left yet. Then there had been a fire in the main house fireplace, and the east wing was cold, and Pip had been sitting in front of that fire for an hour when Rowan came to find her. She was asleep on the floor, curled against the base of the chair, with her coat half over her like a blanket. He looked at her. He looked at the fire, which was still going. He sat down to wait until she was in a lighter sleep, and he could carry her back without waking her fully. Vara was on the other side of the hearth. She had a ledger open in her lap. The room had a good fire in it. She had not been reading for some time. They said nothing for a while. The fire made its own noise. Pip made a sound in her sleep that was probably a word in some language she had invented and used only unconsciously. Neither of them remarked on this. He said, "My wife died 3 years ago." He did not lead up to it. It was simply the next thing he said. Her name was Len. She was practical. Good at things I was not good at. Pip has her eyes. He looked at the fire. "I left my old work when she got sick. I thought it would be temporary. It wasn't. After she died, I had Pip, and I had what was left of what I'd had, and I spent the next 2 years going through both. I took smaller work. Then smaller still. Then I read your notice." He was quiet for a moment. "I wasn't a watchman before," he said. "That's probably clear by now." He did not say what he had been before. Vara was quiet after he finished. He could see her hands in her lap over the closed ledger still. Then she said, "His name was Gur." She was looking at the fire. "He came with the first year. the hard year. We were building the East Field drainage together. The groundwork, the channels. It was slow work, a pause. He died before the fields turned. She did not say how. She did not say what it had been like after. I kept building, she said. I didn't know what else to do with the plans we had made. The fire went on. It had been quiet long enough that the question of saying anything more had passed. I haven't said his name aloud in 2 years, she said. After a while, Pip shifted in her sleep and made a sound that was not quite waking. Rowan moved to her and lifted her without fully rousing her. She settled against his shoulder, still mostly gone, and made a comment in her sleep about the cat that did not require a response. He carried her to the door. He stopped there. He did not look back. "Good night," he said. "Good night," Vara said. He closed the door. The fire was still going on the other side of it. He stood in the dark outside for a moment, Pip warm and heavy against his shoulder. It was not the same grief. The shapes were different. The years were different. The losses had different textures. But it was the same kind of thing. The same weight carried in a different pocket. Not comfort, but something that had been held tight in him for a long time had given a fraction. He carried Pip back to the east wing and put her in her bed and tucked the blanket under her feet first, and then along her back, because that was the order that kept it on longest. Then he sat by the window for a long time without sleeping. The inspector arrived mid-morning on a day in the 4th week, when the frost was still on the north side of the fence posts. He came on a proper horse, with proper papers in a proper case, and introduced himself to Vara at the gate, with the particular formality of someone who has been taught to behave well in uncomfortable situations and is applying that teaching now. He had questions about the estate's operating license, whether certain records were current, whether the property boundary filing was up to date. He read these questions from a list, which meant the questions had been written down somewhere before he arrived, which meant someone had decided what to ask before he had ever seen the estate. Vara brought him to the yard table. She answered each question. Her records were current, her boundary was filed, and had been filed since the 2nd year. She produced the documents without being asked, which meant she had known the kind of visit this was before he knocked. Rowan stood in the yard during the exchange, slightly to the inspector's left, far enough to be outside the conversation, and close enough to be in the inspector's peripheral view. He was not doing anything. He was just standing in a yard the way he had stood in a gate 3 weeks before with his hands at his sides. The inspector's attention kept moving back to him. Vara answered the last question. The inspector made a note. He gathered his papers. Then, almost as an afterthought, he mentioned that a business interest from the Eastern District had made inquiries about the land. He was not authorized to discuss the details. He said this the way you say a thing you have been told to mention but not to explain. He said it to his papers, not to Vara. He closed his case. He said she would be hearing from the licensing office within a fortnight. He nodded to Rowan, which Rowan did not return. He left. They stood in the yard after the sound of his horse had gone. "He'll be back," Vara said. "The inspector," Rowan said. "Not the inspector." He looked at her. She was watching the gate where the horse had gone. Her face did not change. "I've been expecting this for some time," she said. "Someone from the Eastern District has wanted this land since before I finished building. The license visit is the kind of thing that happens first." She paused. "I thought I had another season." He did not ask who or why. He went back to the fence line. He walked the whole perimeter again. The same route he had walked on the first evening, and the second, and the morning he had decided to walk it twice. He counted the sight lines from the road to the house. He counted the gaps. He counted the gates. When he came back in, he found her near the stable. "No offense," he said. "There's a post that won't hold under pressure. I'll need a full day to replace it properly." "Fine," she said. They did not discuss the inspector again. That night he sat by the east wing window and thought about the Eastern District the way you think about weather. You can see coming over the hills, but that has not arrived yet. Not fear, not quite, something that required attention. He got up once more before morning to walk the north fence. He was awake. He was always awake at this hour now. The east wing window faced north. He had kept it unlatched since the 4th week, so he could open it without a sound. He was sitting beside it when he heard the noise. Not the shutter, not an animal, something with intention in it. He was on his feet before the sound finished. He went to Pip first. She was asleep. He put his hand on her shoulder and pressed once, the way he had always done it, firm enough to wake, without startling, and she opened her eyes. "Get up," he said. His voice was level. "Take your blanket. Go to the back of the closet and sit on the floor, and don't come out until I come back." She looked at his face. She got up. She did not ask anything. She took her blanket and went to the closet and sat down on the floor, and he closed the door on her and stood there for a moment with his hand on it. He did not tell her everything was going to be fine. He crossed the yard. The cold had settled back in since the inspector's visit, the kind that sat in the ground and did not lift by noon. He knew this yard now. He knew where the ground dropped near the east fence and where it leveled out again, and the boards near the stable door that sounded different under a footfall, and where the cat slept on cold nights. He moved through it without hesitating. He reached the main house and knocked on Vara's window. Not loudly. 3 knocks, spaced. She opened the door before the 3rd knock landed. She was dressed. "How many?" she said. "At least 4, he said. "Possibly more." "Northgate." She went back inside for a moment and came out with a heavy adze from the tool wall near the door. Working implement, not a weapon. Close enough. "Stay inside," he said. "No," she said. He looked at her, all 190 centimeters of her, with the adze in her hand and her jaw set. He accepted this. They went to the gate together. There were 4 men. A 5th stood back by the road where the torchlight did not reach. Rowan had not seen him before, but he knew what he was looking at. The man was not large and he was not loud. That was the first thing. Men who came to an estate at this hour and wanted to frighten you came loud. Merrick was quiet. He was standing at the closed gate with his arms at his sides and his men arranged behind him, and he was waiting. He had the look of someone who had come to places like this before and left with what he came for. Vara came to stand behind Rowan and to one side. Merrick looked at her. Then he said, "This doesn't have to be complicated. The land transfers, you're paid a fair price and you move on. The papers can be signed before morning." He said it the way you say a thing you believe will happen regardless of the conversation you are having about it. Rowan stepped out of the shadow, past the gatepost, into the space between Merrick and the yard. He said nothing. He stood there with his hands at his sides, the same way he had stood in the gate the day he had told the locals to move on. Except that was weeks ago, and something was different now. The way he was standing was different. He did not try to make it different, it simply was. Merrick's lead man, standing to the right, saw it first. He went quiet in a different way than he had been quiet before. Merrick looked at Rowan. He looked at him the way a man looks at something he is revising his estimate of. For a long moment, nothing moved. Not the men, not the torch flame. The night was still, and the gate was between them, and Rowan stood in it, and Merrick was counting something. Rowan could see him counting it. No one spoke. The standoff held for another breath, and then it broke. Merrick's lead man moved. Not toward Roan. Toward Vara, trying to go around the gatepost on the left side where the gap was. He did not get there. What happened next, Roan could not have explained in order. It was not thinking. It was not decision. It was memory, and his body had a better memory than he did. He moved. His hand caught the lead man's arm at the elbow, used the forward momentum, and the man went into the ground face first and stayed there. Ron was already facing the second man, who had taken half a step forward. The second man stopped. He did not take the other half. The third man had not moved. The fourth had taken a step backward. The man near the road had gone very still. Roan had not spoken. The whole thing had taken less time than it takes to say so. He was standing in the same place, more or less, which meant he was still between Merrick and Vara. His breathing had not changed. That was the part that would be hardest to account for later. His breathing had not changed at all. Something had come out of his pocket in the movement. He felt it go and heard it before he saw it. A small, heavy sound in the dirt. A ring of iron on stone. The medallion lay between him and Merrick. The torchlight caught it. An iron disc, worn smooth on both sides, with a mark that had been stamped into it a long time ago and had not worn away. Merrick looked at it. He went very still. He looked from the medallion to Roan's face. He looked for a long moment, the way a man looks when he is checking something he already half knows against what he is seeing, and he found what he was looking for. "I know who you are," Merrick said. Roan said nothing. Behind him, slightly to his right, he could hear Vara. She had not moved. He could not see her face. He could hear that she was looking at the medallion. Merrick looked at his men. He looked at the second man, who had not taken the other half of that step and was not going to. He looked at the man on the ground, who had decided to stay there. He looked at the two men farther back. He counted something. He counted it twice. Whatever it was, it did not come out the way he had wanted. He stepped forward, past the gatepost. Roan did not move. Merrick bent and picked up the medallion from the dirt. Not quickly, not the way you pick up a weapon, but the way you pick up something you want to look at. He held it in the torchlight. He looked at the mark on it. Then he crossed to the nearest fence post and set the medallion on top of it, carefully, with the marked side up. He stepped back. "This isn't finished," he said. He left. His men gathered themselves and followed. The man on the ground got up last, without looking at anyone, and went after them. Silence. Roan walked to the fence post. He picked up the medallion. He held it. He stood there for a long time, turning it once in his hand, the worn iron warm from Merrick's grip. The iron was the same as it had always been. He was not. He put it in his pocket. "Who are you?" Vara's voice. Behind him he turned. She was standing where she had been. Standing through all of it. The adze still in her hand, her eyes on him. It was not an accusation. It was an honest question. He thought about how to answer it. He had been given versions of that question before. He had always found a way around it. "Someone who used to be someone else," he said. She waited. "I'll tell you inside. Pip has been in that closet long enough." They went back in. Pip was in the closet for 11 minutes. She told him this precisely. Once he had opened the door and checked her over for harm, she had not sustained. She was fine. The closet smelled like old wood and something that might have been dried herbs. She described both possibilities in detail. Roan handed her a cup of water, and she drank half of it and continued describing the closet. Vara was at the table. She listened to the full account of the atmospheric conditions, including a spider in the upper corner that had not caused any trouble. After a while, Pip fell asleep at the table. Roan carried her to bed. When he came back, Vara was still at the table. He sat down and told her who he was. Without preamble, without building to it, a soldier in a contracted company. Not a standing army. The kind of company that goes where the work is and does not ask too many questions about the work. He had been in it for years. He left when his wife got sick, expecting to go back when she recovered, and then she did not recover. And then he did not go back. He had Pip, he had the skills, and none of the context for them. From the company. I kept it because I didn't know what else to do with it. He paused. I don't know if Merrick will come back. I don't know what he'll bring when he does. She was quiet for a moment. Then, Merrick wants the East Field. She looked at the table. There are 3 fields like it in this district. Mine is the only one with the drainage. Gurr built that channel work he did in the first year. It makes the land worth considerably more than I have let on. A pause. I didn't tell you this when I hired you. I didn't trust you yet. She looked at him. I trust you now. He nodded. He did not say anything else. Neither did she. 3 weeks passed. The East Field came up green and heavy, the kind of green that meant the drainage was working the way Gurr had intended. Pip learned which rows grew what and developed firm opinions about all of them. The cat had finally settled on a single name. It was still an unlikely name, but it was consistent now, and the cat acknowledged it the way cats acknowledge things, which is to say, it did not move away when called. Rowan stayed. He did not announce this. He did not bring it up. He simply did not leave, and the days continued, and no one said anything about it. Merrick did not come back in those weeks. He had not stopped wanting the land, but he had not come back yet. One evening, Rowan sat at the east wing window after Pip had gone to sleep. He took the medallion from his pocket. He held it for a moment, turning it once. Then he set it on the windowsill, in the space between the latch and the frame, where the last of the light still reached. Not hidden, not displayed, just there, where he could see it, not pried. But the part of him that had been ashamed of it had gone quiet. The East Field was green, the fence held. Somewhere beyond the ridge in the eastern district, someone was looking at a map that had Vara's land on it. The man who had drawn that line had not stopped drawing. But that was beyond the ridge. Here the field was green, and the window was latched, and somewhere in the house a cat was sleeping under a name it had chosen to accept. Did you enjoy the story? Subscribe to the channel to watch more stories like this one. Leave a like, it helps the channel a lot. And drop a comment down below. I always read them and use your feedback to make our content better. Thanks so much. Channel name.